And tell me about, I'm curious to hear this story about how your dad really brought co-management into the forefront of practice. At least that's what I've heard.
Yeah. So if you look back, it would have been in the early 90s, maybe late 80s. I don't know the exact timeline, but there's a time where more or less co-management was totally frowned upon. And most of the doctors, there was very much a us versus them mentality. You had optometrists and ophthalmologists, very little sharing of patients from one to the other. At that time, optometrists could not do dilating drops. They did not have prescribing license. They couldn't prescribe, glaucoma medications. Very limited scope of practice for optometry within the state. And then there was sort of a transition where the optometry had a change in their scope of practice, and some of the doctors, some of the ophthalmologists sort of supported that with, let's say, CE meetings, collaboration, working with those optometrists. If the optometrist had prescribed a medication and maybe there's trouble, or they prescribed a glaucoma medication and a patient ended up having, ultimately some kind of complication or whatever it was, depending where that patient landed, one ophthalmologist might totally throw that optometrist under the bus and more or less, sort of try to end their career path, versus some of the ophthalmologists were more supportive to their, eye colleagues, and more, the doctors that did that, I think, were sort of endeared by the optometrists and built long-lasting relationships that those optometrists remembered. And I still work with many of those optometrists today that talk about their career path, how they, were taught how to just do simple things like dilating the eye or, glaucoma medication, whatever it is. And so that started the relationship. And then, initially it was sort of an informal referral of patients for cataract surgery. And then when co-management was more or less endorsed by the Medicare and OIG, that model sort of exploded, and the practice became much busier under that sort of relationship.